the smoke rising. But this is the nastiest smoke we've seen is from this view. This is the view again from the Oakland airport, live pictures. Really, really nasty, thick, black smoke coming from that area. So, Wilson, you're in the area again of Crystal Ridge Court and Campus Drive. That was the first area to get these evacuation notices about an hour ago. The fire's been burning for at least 2 hours at this point. The other area, Rifle Lane and Altura Place, it's probably hard to get your mind around exactly how close you are to that area, but those are some of the newer evacuations.
Hard for me to see from our one spot. I can look a little bit to the south, and I can see that there are tigers of coal and folks sort of stationed back in that neighborhood. So I can tell that the streets behind us have been cleared out. Looking back at this street now, Cal Fire, Santa Clara, Oakland, OES, and I might have seen a Hayward truck.
Okay. Yeah, we've been talking about that mutual aid. All Bay Area fire departments on standby, knowing that when a fire breaks out somewhere, it's all hands on deck to be able to contain it. Okay, well, now we got our chopper back in action here. Some pretty dramatic pictures of that fire that is continuing to burn in that dry terrain. When you see a pocket of fire like that, firefighters just have to let it burn and hope that it is able to stay contained to that area. Wilson, I'm going to let you go and gather some more information for us. But before you go, I know that you're on Crystal Ridge Court. There are people that are evacuated, that are desperate for information, that live there. What would you like to tell them right now as far as what you're seeing and the resources that are there? If you know somebody who knows somebody who lives there.
Anyone who has a home on this street can rest assured that there are several firefighters on every piece of property. Forgive me, I've been running.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the answer.
Okay. Really good news there. I know you're going to be around the area, perhaps heading to the evacuation center, which is, by the way, at Merritt College for everybody who needs to know that information. We have got the evacuations on Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, and Altura Place. Wilson, really appreciate your on-the-ground account of what we have been watching for almost 2 hours now about this fire that has been burning in the Oakland Hills. Wilson, check in with us later, please.
Of course.
Okay, very good. Again, to back this up, we have several neighborhoods evacuated. This fire broke out near the area of 580 at Keller Avenue, and that is where we have westbound 580 closed. That has been closed for about half an hour as firefighters continue their fight. The eastbound lanes are open. This fire broke out. The area that is evacuated is called the Caballo Hills area of the Oakland Hills. And again, that is Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, and Altura Place. We have a live picture right now from the ground. This is at Mountain and Shone. I hope I'm saying that second road name right. Mountain and Shone there. Okay. We have a photographer there, and you can see how close that fire is burning to some of those homes. Not seeing any fire personnel on the ground there, but we're seeing several neighbors coming out of their homes aware that this fire is burning through the trees very close to their backyards. And you can see some of those embers, some of those, orange sparks. They're burning very, very close to their homes. This is the difficulty, is that you have these little pockets of homes, windy roads at times, and the fact that these fires can spread very quickly. Oh, there we have. Luckily, some firefighters there trying to make sure that the ground is wet enough to not spread this fire to those homes. Very good news there. I'm also told that one of our photographers on the ground has spoken with a neighbor who was not evacuated, but her neighbor was evacuated. Let's hear from this person. Yep. Going to give us a second to pull that up.
I hope everyone over there is safe. There's a dog daycare up at the top of the hill, and I'm hoping that they got everyone evacuated. I did see a police car go up there earlier, so they're probably gone, but I was talking to another neighbor who lives across the road, and she was evacuated from her place. Scary stuff.
What goes through your head living so close to this?
You know, over on this side, we're supposedly out of the high fire zone, but this is scary, and I'm glad the winds haven't picked up yet.
Yeah, it's not all that windy
No,
right now.
Not yet, but we've been getting warnings for the past 3 days that, you know, there might be power outages, so.
All right, so we just heard from that woman who lives near the evacuation zone. She herself is not evacuated. And she talked about what we've been hearing from Darren Peck as well, about the fact that the winds are not crazy right now, even though we've gotten these warnings and they're expected to pick up. We have the high fire danger. We have the red flag warning that has been in effect since late last night. But we did also have crews there on the ground, resources, fire trucks, engines. You're looking at a CAL FIRE helicopter right now, one of many that has been doing water drops over this area. So this is the largest fire burning in the Bay Area amongst this high fire danger, these red flag warnings that we have been talking about all week. And the good news there is that they're able to get resources from all around the area. We have seen firefighters from Fremont, Santa Clara County. This is mutual aid when you have a dangerous situation and you need to get all hands on deck as quickly as possible in order to stop this before it gets out of control, which is something that happens very quickly in an area like the Oakland Hills. I just got the actual date. Tomorrow is the 33rd anniversary of the Oakland Hills fire. That was October 19th, 1991. So certainly an eerie coincidence when it comes to that. But that is because these are the conditions that we see at this time of year. Very, very dry. It's October. It's the end of the dry season, moving into the rainy season. The rain has not come, so we are at the peak of dryness. And that is what we are looking at firefighters trying to remedy right there with spraying that water on the terrain directly behind these houses to try to get it from spreading to these structures. All right, we've been talking about evacuations. We have several areas that have been evacuated. Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, Altura Place. Those people have been told to evacuate. And there is an evacuation center open right now at Merritt College. Our Lauren Toms live for us at Merritt College, where people are evacuating right now. Tell us everything, Lauren.
Yeah, hey, Anna, right behind me, you can see about a dozen people who have evacuated their homes here along Campus Drive. Right now, I am at Merritt College, and we're seeing a bit of a lineup of cars here with people rushing home from work, trying to get into their homes here on Campus Drive. We have a bit of a police barricade here. And I've also seen a CAL FIRE plane coming in several times across this hill ridge here and over to spray retardant on the smoke over here. Families gathering here at Merritt College, waiting for word that their homes are safe and that they can return. But right now we know that they are throwing a lot of resources into combating this fire. We can see some people even turning around, knowing that they're not going to be able to make it through Campus Drive. I myself tried to make it up as far as I could. And I was turned around not too far into this community. People clearly concerned about their CAL FIRE actively on scene here working to extinguish these flames. And I'm trying to see if we can get another view of this this flame retardant plane coming in once again to extinguish this fire. I've seen it come in over the last 5 minutes. I've seen it come in at least 3 times at this point. So active efforts underway to get this fire under control, Ann.
All right. Any idea, and I know it's hard from your perspective to tell, but like how many people are trying to get to that area right now? It's hard to tell exactly how many homes that we're talking have been evacuated because this is coming from 4 different roadways. Again, Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, and Altura Place.
Yeah, and I'm on Campus Drive here. I've seen probably 2 or 3 dozen vehicles trying to make it back to their homes. Several people have just stopped waiting for word that they can also enter this community once again. We are seeing more and more cars lining up here at Merritt College waiting for word. We have Oakland police officers. We have several CAL FIRE members here on scene, people here with their dogs. People have coordinated as a community. They're talking about this risk. I'm not sure if you can see behind me here. We have a handful of people lining up who have been evacuated from their homes, just waiting for word that it's finally safe for them to return. But at this point, and this is still a very active and very rapidly moving situation up here on Campus Drive.
All right, I'm going to ask him. I'm assuming you probably don't know the answer to this since you just got there and they're just opening up this evacuation center. But what kind of resources might people find there?
At this point, Anne, I haven't made it too far into Merritt College, but this is really just a safe place for people to congregate. It's on the outside of this evacuation zone. We even have some CAL FIRE trying to take some photos, presumably trying to get a better understanding of how and where this is spreading. I am seeing this plane once again making another round across the flames with flame retardant. You can see the flames right behind me. As of right now, this is just a safe place for people to come evacuate. I haven't seen any resources in terms of food, water, anything like that. But people are gathering as a community with their pets, with their loved ones, just waiting for word that it's safe to return.
Right. Safe place. And, you know, the firefighters have this all thought out as far as where they want the vehicles to start moving so that they can keep the roadways in the actual fire zone clear. Lauren Toms, thank you so much. I know you're going to be talking with some of these evacuees about the scary afternoon that they have been dealing with as we wait for word on how many homes have been damaged so far. Last word I got on that was about 5. But we've seen several structures burning on some of our live pictures. So it's hard to get an actual number on that. Lauren Toms, we're going to check in with you later. Thanks so much. Meantime, when we talk about the fire zone, the evacuation zone, that is where we have our Wilson Walker. Spoke with him a little bit earlier on the phone. He's able to get a live picture up right now. And again, Wilson, like we said, you're on Crystal Ridge Court. Are you still on Crystal Ridge Court?
See here is from these backyards that I've been telling you about, and I hope y'all have been watching the cavalry that has shown up here. Forgive me, I'm going to try to give you a look at the resources that they have brought in here. This thing has made 2 passes now on this hillside, and yes, and it is dropping retardant. So if it comes back through, I'll try to give you a shot. Something else I want to show you over here. You asked about what's going on in these backyards.
Okay, and I just want to stop you for 1 second, Wilson, just to point out for our viewers that Wilson's live camera that you're looking at is there on the left-hand side of your screen. The smaller piece of video there, that is Wilson's live picture right now from the area of Crystal Ridge Court. Okay, go ahead, Wilson. All right, he's giving us a picture of some of the backyards there on Crystal Ridge Court, and we did see firefighters. I don't know if we lost contact with Wilson's audio. There we have his live picture of a plane dropping fire retardant. Seeing that actually from 2 angles, also from our chopper on the right-hand side of your screen. And that is some firefighters standing on the porch of one of the backyards there on Crystal Ridge Court. So that area is under evacuation orders, mandatory evacuation orders. But firefighters are there trying to protect all those homes. And that is why they do evacuations, not only for people's direct safety, but so that they're able to get their equipment in there and they're able to do their job without a lot of people running around getting in the way. All right, Wilson, I think we can hear you again now.
Yeah, I'm just sort of trying to give you a little cue as to when these planes are coming by.
Okay, it's pretty hard for me. I'm wondering if my producer can give me an indication. Can you hear him on air for our broadcast viewers? I want to make sure that you can hear Wilson because he's giving us the firsthand account there on the ground showing us these live pictures there on the left-hand side of your screen. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can see one of many CAL FIRE airplanes that has been going over the area, dropping flame retardant. We also have helicopters that have been dipping in some of the local lakes and spraying water on the area, both working in tandem, the flame retardant and the water trying to put some sort of dent in the dry foliage that we have that is built up there in the Oakland Hills and all around the Bay Area. It is a very, very dry time of year. It is October. And then we had this red flag warning that came into effect late last night, bringing in dry, hot winds from the east, those El Diablo winds. Luckily, we have lucked out when it comes to the fact that those winds are not raging right now. They are not at their peak. They certainly can be, and they might be picking up later, according to both of our meteorologists who are on top of this right now, Zoe Mintz and Darren Peck, telling us that the winds are not at their craziest, but they could be later tonight. That is what makes this of the utmost importance, to get a handle on this fire, to get some lines around it, to get a clear border that firefighters are able to protect into the night. And then for the next couple of days, because this high fire danger is going to be in effect through tomorrow night. So this is just the beginning of what could be a real long haul. And we know firefighters have been preparing for this, knowing that this fire danger was coming, knowing that some of the most destructive fires in the Bay Area happen in the month of October. The wine country wildfires, of course, the Oakland Hills firestorm back in 1991, which Darren luckily put into perspective for us. That was a windstorm firestorm. The winds were raging, and that is not something we're seeing right now. But obviously, we are seeing this fire rage because you are looking at these live pictures of the smoke coming up over that canyon. This terrain dotted with little forests, many of them eucalyptus trees, which are certainly a fire risk around the Bay Area, a non-native tree that once the fire gets wrapped up in its leaves, it spreads extremely quickly. All right, we heard from another neighbor, another person who was, I believe, not evacuated, but is watching this all unfold. Everybody who lives in the Oakland Hills is keenly aware of what has gone on there and the danger, even though they have strengthened that neighborhood with fire protection, that there is just some things that you can't get around. It is a dangerous place to be in dangerous fire weather. Let's hear from that neighbor.
Well, we got a call from our nephew who just happened to be driving by on 580. Said, you guys got a fire going. We came out and it was across the street on the freeway side. And the fire was going, and then it jumped over onto the church property and started to go up the backside of the hill, and then the house on the corner. The roof was on fire. The fire department got here pretty quick, started putting out as much as they could, and now we see that it's jumping back. But we have a water tower in the back, and it's on that side, and there's houses back there, so hopefully they'll get it quickly, but they're doing the job the best they can. So.
And, you know, just for the people that aren't here to see it, can you just describe what you saw earlier when these trees were burning?
The tree was on fire, and the ground and the grass around it, and then smoke, more fire than smoke actually, until they started pouring water on it, and it started to smoke up. But it was just a big blaze of fire.
And how's the church doing?
Church is doing okay. We cut our brush way back, so just small little burns are going, but it is catching the trees that we have on the side, so that we're concerned about. And I'm out checking to make sure everything's okay, helping the fire department when I can and where I can.
And how are you feeling about all this? How do you feel about all this going down?
I think that they could do a better job of cleaning up the freeway sides, clean that up, because we've done our share. We cut all our grass down. We got to kind of fireproof it, but yeah, it's a little more effort on their part. We probably could have stopped this. I have no idea what caused it.
Yeah, as far as the cause, we have no idea at this point. Obviously, all the firefighting resources are going into trying to control this, trying to protect the homes in the area, and then we will get to the cause. But it doesn't take much when the ground is so dry and when we have winds coming in, dry winds coming in from the east. This fire has been burning in the Oakland Hills for over 2 hours now. We have been live on the air here on CBS News Bay Area watching this as new information comes in, as it unfolds, giving you live pictures and really taking it all in as you are. And we have 2 live shots right now. You can see firefighters there in one neighborhood. I believe that is the area of Crystal Ridge Court. Nope, I'm sorry. That is Mountain and Shone in the Oakland Hills. You can see firefighters there spraying water around some of those homes to make sure that they are protected if and when the fire does jump to their backyards. That is the problem. It's been running uphill, and it's also been spreading throughout the trees of the Oakland Hills. That is some of the very difficult terrain that firefighters are dealing with right now. I want to remind you about the evacuations that are in effect. If you know anybody there, Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, and Altura Place. Those are the areas that are under evacuation orders, and people that are being evacuated are told a safe place to go right now is to Merritt College. No word on when they might be allowed back into their homes, but the important thing is to make sure that those roadways are clear, because you're looking at a straight one there, but some of the roadways in those Oakland Hills and those neighborhoods are very windy as you get into some of the little residential neighborhoods nestled amongst these forests. So to make sure that those roadways are clear for firefighters to be able to get in there. At last check, we had about 80 firefighters on scene. I'm guessing we have more now because this is an all hands on deck. It is a mutual aid situation. We've got firefighters coming from as far away as Santa Clara County, likely Sacramento at this point. We have the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services taking a live look right now. One of the main strategies, one of the large CAL FIRE air tankers coming in to drop fire retardant. And you're watching this live from our chopper right now. You can see that plane about to do a major drop. All in an effort to try to protect some of these homes that are threatened. As far as the damage, we've seen live pictures over the last 2 hours of a handful of structures burning that look to be homes. But at last word, the official word from firefighters was that 5 structures have burned and that many more are threatened. All right, let's go back to Darren Peck, because Darren, you made me feel a little better last time you were here about the conditions that we're dealing with currently. The problem is if they don't get a handle on this and if the winds are able to pick up is when we could see things really intensifying. And yes. I don't mean to downplay what we're seeing, because obviously this is a major problem.
Well, I mean, the way to think about that, what's the framing on this red flag warning? Does not expire until tomorrow night. So if you just generalize it from there, we need to be aware of that time frame. But we can get more specific when we start talking about localized regions of the Bay and timing. So let's use the virtual map for a second, and I want to hopefully give us a little more reason to feel at least maybe optimistic and hopeful about the wind's role in this particular event. First of all, we've got our locator on the map here. For the Oakland Hills, we've got about 8 acres in this location that have been burned. Let's take the current wind. We're going to start from the beginning in terms of where we are right now. And when you look at the wind as a whole across the bay, you immediately come away with some real valuable information. This red flag warning and the offshore wind event is playing out with some real good intensity up here through the North Bay. Mountains of wine country. You can see the shades are brighter. Look at the direction. That is our offshore wind event. Now, on a more localized scale, let's come closer to where this fire is burning. We've got kind of a mixed bag down here. There's certainly an offshore wind component on the other side of the East Bay Hills, and you can almost see it's like a topographic barrier on here, where the winds are not necessarily cresting and downsloping. That is very good news. This is wonderful news, at least from a let's avoid a worst case scenario situation. Right now, the wind's fairly behaving. We've seen that from all of our pictures. We're looking at that right now on the monitor just to my side. That is smoke that is allowed to rise vertically, and it is not getting rushed down those hills. And from Wilson's report earlier, Wilson actually talked about this fire wanting to move uphill. That's the complete opposite direction that this fire would be moving if this wind event was really controlling this day in a worst case scenario, because without question, those flames would be getting pushed downhill towards more homes. And that's not happening right now. So to answer Ann's question, what's going to happen next? Is there more good news on that? Let's come back to the virtual set again. And what we'll do, again, using our starting point, this is where the winds stand at this point, and I've got it locked in time, just to give us an overview on how the wind's moving through the bay now, and we've kind of seen our relatively positive story on the wind. Let's take it forward, and I'm going to bring us ahead through about the next 12 hours, because there is going to be an uptick in offshore winds as we go through the overnight hours and into tomorrow morning. But there are some important details on that, which again, I think are going to hopefully lend some positive news to this. If we animate this and watch how the wind's going to change over the course of the next 12 hours, what we start to see is a subtle, let's turn off where we are right now for the winds and start this fresh, because I really want to get the animation in here over the next 12 hours. We're going to take it from where it is now and watch the winds shift a little bit in intensity. They certainly stay strong over the northern mountains until we get done with this red flag warning tomorrow night. But in terms of an uptick in wind here, where we care about most for this particular fire, that likely wouldn't really occur until we get into tomorrow morning late. So yes, the winds will change as we get past sunset. Topography will come into play. There might even be a little bit of a battle here with some very weak onshore influence, which will stabilize the wind from getting too strong one way or the other. And then tomorrow in the late morning, almost 24 hours, in fact, from the point in time at which this fire started, we will see another uptick in offshore winds through the East Bay Hills. Again, it doesn't look crazy intense. Probably pick up to about where it was in the early hours of this afternoon. And that was never off the charts, but it was still an offshore wind, meaning it was coming from inland and going offshore, and that could then really help fan whatever flames might still be there if we're still looking at this tomorrow in the late morning. We go back to the pictures here. I think there are some positive takeaways on this in terms of the manpower on the fire now and the sense from a distance, just from watching it through our lens, through all of the different cameras, this does not appear to be getting wildly out of control. Doesn't mean they've contained it. Certainly doesn't mean it's out, but just from a view or from a distance, which is what unfortunately many of us have to be at this point when you're in the event itself, we can gauge this from our cameras that for the most part, this is not becoming a wildly out of control wildfire. And that's from not only this vantage point. Take a look at the image over my shoulder here. Started time-lapsing our camera's vantage point from the top of the Salesforce Tower, which has been watching this since it started, a little after 1:40 in the afternoon. And as we play that through, you can watch what this fire's done over the course of the last few hours. There's a little bit of progress uphill. Did you see it? Marches its way uphill. You never want to see a fire advancing. That fire was certainly advancing uphill. But that's a huge piece of information on this fire from a worst-case scenario standpoint. Uphill means the fire is being driven more by topography in what a natural fire would do under normal circumstances than a fire that's being driven by intense downslope winds. That's what we did not want to see today. And that is what we're vulnerable to anytime we've got an offshore wind event like this. But thankfully, for the East Bay Hills today, it's not really playing out. And it never really was a spotlight necessarily for the East Bay Hills. We've been talking about the North Bay Mountains for the last 4 days and putting a spotlight in those regions where, sure enough, even now on the virtual map, you can see there are much brighter colors up there. That's a bigger liability from this offshore wind event than what we've got locally in the Oakland Hills, thankfully. All right, Ann, back to you.
All right, really good information and perspective there, Darren. It sounds like the concern is the winds picking up as the day proceeds. That is why firefighters are trying to get a really good handle on this now as best as they can, but they have so many challenges when it comes to the terrain of the Oakland Hills. It's very dry. Not only on the ground, the trees are very dry. We're talking about eucalyptus trees, which have been known to spread fires very, very quickly. So we have several neighborhoods under evacuation orders. I want to run those down for you again. Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, and Altura Place. Those are all under mandatory evacuations right now. Other neighborhoods around there are under evacuation watches and warnings. So be aware of that. These evacuations will likely spread, but you can see all of the resources right now on the ground, in the air. CAL FIRE throwing everything it can at this, as well as Oakland Fire Department and fire departments from municipalities all around the Bay Area who came up here as soon as they got the word. This fire has been burning for about 2.5 hours right now, and it's spread into several little pockets of residential areas. We know that with those evacuations have also come some traffic issues, including on 580, which was actually closed because that fire burned right up to those westbound lanes of 580. And our reporter Suji Nam has been at that scene. I think you just got there, Suji. Tell us exactly where you are and what you're seeing.
I'm right off the exit off Keller Avenue, and it is just chaotic, to say the least. I mean, take a look at the scene right here behind me. The freeway on that side actually started to open up just momentarily, but you can just see the sheer amount of teamwork by all the first responders right now as they're trying to extinguish whatever they can on land. We spoke to one nearby neighbor who said that she is very devastated that her home, I mean, you can just see the home right across from us. It was up in flames, and now it's being extinguished. So I actually was up those hills just a few minutes ago, and I just saw so many police cars and firefighters just rushing to the scene, trying to evacuate as many residents as possible. Again, a very, very active scene right now. Traffic picking up more than usual, but we'll be sure to keep you guys updated as we're staying again right here by Keller Avenue.
Now, Suji, we know that weather plays a big part in how quickly this fire is able to spread, and we got a lot of the scientific information from Darren Peck just a few moments ago. But from where you're standing, how are the winds? Have they died down? What are you seeing? What are you smelling?
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can smell the smoke. I smelled it from miles away as I was driving to this live shot. And the wind, I think it's pretty mild right now. I mean, I can definitely feel the wind here, but it comes and goes. It comes and goes. But yes, the wind is picking up, which can be a challenge for these firefighters out here. But of course, as you can see, they're working very, very diligently right now, Anne.
Yeah, okay, so you said that you had sort of been up in the hills. Can you tell us a little bit about traveling around in that area and how that's been?
Yeah, so I was actually up. I passed a couple elementary schools. The name of the street I was on, it's slipping my mind, and I'm sorry, but I was driving up those hills, and I got there right before the police cars were actually starting to block off the streets. But as soon as I got there, trying to figure out where I was, all these first responders were knocking on my car door, asking me if I was a resident, because they're trying to get people out as soon as possible. And when I tried to leave the hill back downwards, on the other direction, the police cars were actually starting to block that side of the road, preventing more people from going uphill. So I'm sure the scene has changed very much now, but lots of residents were walking outside. They were driving, turning around, trying to get out of the area as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Did you get a sense, I don't know if you had a chance to talk to any of them, but a sense of how they're feeling? Obviously, this is very scary, but I guess I'm wondering, to what level they are frantic, running, terrified, or is this a real orderly sort of slow-moving disaster?
Yeah. So when I was there, at least, I think they were all very cooperative with law enforcement as they were telling them to turn around and get out of the area. But definitely when I was driving down, a lot of the people that I saw, their faces were really concerned. I mean, a lot of them don't even know the conditions of their homes right now. And they're just hoping and praying for the best. But there are a lot of neighbors out here who are standing by the Keller Avenue exit, and they're all pretty terrified and they're concerned. They're like, we're just going to hope for the best that our home will be in one condition. But that's all they can do right now is to pray. But the residents are trying to remain in good spirits, Anne.
Yeah, a lot of these people, Suji, just getting word, maybe they were at work, maybe they were at the doctor's office. Oh, and when you hear a fire breaking out in the Oakland Hills, everybody knows how dangerous it can get and how quickly that can happen, especially with these red flag warnings. I'm sure most people that live in this area were aware of the conditions. We've been warning people about it for the past week, and it's no joke when you live in these areas, how scary this can be. We've also been talking about, the Oakland Hills firestorm happening 33 years ago tomorrow is the anniversary. So it's something that is deeply personal to a lot of people that live in that area. And again, not comparing them, we're talking with that 25 people dead, 3,000 homes that burned. By all accounts, this is not going to be anywhere near that level of tragedy. But the mood and the awareness of the danger, I can only imagine, is striking a chord with people there.
Oh, absolutely. And like you mentioned, Anna, I mean, it is starting to get rush hour right now, right? So a lot of these cars, a lot of these drivers who are driving by may not have been aware that this is what they were going to encounter on their drive home. And the freeway, that when I was driving towards, again, Keller Avenue, it was backed up pretty bad. It was jammed up pretty bad getting to here. And as you can see, like, you can see the helicopters and the planes over there doing those drops of water. I mean, again, it's a pretty incredible sight to see, just the incredible teamwork of everyone here. But again, everyone is just hoping and praying for the best here and hopefully getting this all contained.
It is. Suji, can you have your photographer out there sort of give us the scene that we were looking at earlier with, we saw the firefighters and also PG&E crews, everybody out there. Yes, thank you for that. You can see it's just all these emergency workers there converging on this area, because that looks like it's easy enough to get in and out of. It's by the highway, because you said you're near the Keller Avenue exit of 580.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
yes.
easy
And,
enough for them to get in and out of. It looks like it's sort of a staging area.
It is. You can see a big group of all the law enforcement and first responders that are gathered in this corner here, because like you said, Anne, the exit to the entrance to the freeway is right there. So it is a good meeting point. And, you know, a lot of people are starting to congregate towards where I'm standing right now. So I'm definitely seeing a lot of troopers actually using their microphones to tell everyone to get out of the way and stop. Do not stop in this area, of course, to clear the path for the first responders here.
All right, Suji Nam live for us on 580 in Keller. Stick around, Suji. We know that you're going to be able to give us some more information as this continues to unfold. We appreciate that. I also want to bring in Ryan Yamamoto. He is in our virtual view studio. Ryan, you have been watching the news unfold over the past couple of hours of this fire that broke out. Actually, it's we're working on 2.5 hours or even a little bit more since this fire broke out in the area of Mountain Boulevard and Maynard in the Oakland Hills. At last word, we've heard 4 to 5 homes have burned. But again, from the video that we've seen, I think many more than that, or at the very least damaged from this fire, as it's sort of been leapfrogging amongst the hills, amongst some of the forest land to some of these hidden neighborhoods. Ryan, can you hear me?
Yeah, and I can hear you. I'm just watching on the monitors right now, and just as we're looking at those fire drops that are happening and the aerial assault that CAL FIRE is using right now on this fire, that is how they're attacking this fire. You do see some ground hoses also on that fire, but some of the helicopters and some of the equipment that they're using with that aerial attack in the last 15 minutes or so, you just saw that aerial drop from a Huey helicopter. We also saw CAL FIRE bring out the Sikorsky S-70I Firehawks also on the fire. And then you have the double rotor helicopter. That is one of their Chinook helicopters. That's one of their new helicopters that they're using in their aerial attacks. Also, when they're looking at some of those big planes that you've seen doing those big fire retardant drops, you saw that big DC-10 that happened about a half hour ago. It's still circling around. That actually is a fire plane that's not with CAL FIRE. That is a contractor called 10 Tanker. They have several tankers scattered around the state of California, mostly in L.A., but they do have some stationed up in the McClellan Air Force Base out of Sacramento. So whenever there is a big fire in Northern California, they bring that down. Those DC-10s are big planes. They hold a lot of retardant, up to 9,400 gallons of fire retardant within 8 seconds for up to about a mile long. So those are big planes that they're using in these aerial attacks. Also, you see the big CAL FIRE Hercules C-130s. Those are those big prop planes that CAL FIRE uses on those airdrops. But also, for a better perspective on what's happening on the ground, let's go to Wilson Walker. Hey, Wilson, what can you see right now?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm up here remarking with everyone that's watching about the air show that you were just describing. There are 2 DC-10s. There's the C-130 you mentioned. There's a handful of other smaller planes. And we think about 3 or 4 helicopters. So it is it is genuinely an air show right now. The other observation I can offer is that the smoke really seems to be thinning out a little bit. Doesn't look anything like when I first got here. For much of the time I've been standing here, I could not see the Oakland airport through the smoke, which is directly in front of us here, and now you can. So I think this thing is starting to lay down, and I would peg the C-130 retardant drop as having had a big part of that. This fire has not behaved the same since they put those couple retardant drops down. Fingers crossed. It looks like the smoke's thinning out, getting sort of that opaque white. I think there's some encouraging signs up here.
Yeah, Wilson, you talk about those C-130s. Those are the planes that the CAL FIRE bought from the U.S. Coast Guard. That happened about 3 or 4 years ago, and they put those into operation I think the first C-130 Hercules started last year, but they're definitely, as you were saying, making a huge impact. These are some of the videos of the airdrops that we have seen throughout the day within the last couple of hours as Ann was on the air. And then on the left of your screen, you see that is the Chinook helicopter, one of the newest aircraft that they are using in this firefight. But as you mentioned, because of the hills, because of the terrain, the aerial firefight is probably the key to keeping this fire at bay right now. But you had mentioned 2 DC-10s. We see at least 1 C-130, a couple Firehawks right there. That, once again, is the Chinook helicopter, both on the left and the right. Those are live looks right now as they are doing water drops. But the DC-10s and the C-130s, those are the ones putting down that pink carpet, that fire retardant, and that's helping keep that fire at bay right now. As you mentioned, looks like the smoke has started to dissipate.
Yeah, it's definitely thinning out a little bit. I must say, I've covered some fires. I have not seen one of these Chinooks yet. They're pretty impressive. I'm also not sure we've seen the DC-10s drop yet. I'm not sure we have. They have been circling, but I'm not sure I saw one of them drop. I think the C-130 was the biggest single drop we've seen, Ryan. But it's amazing how fast all of that got here. You've got to think people were standing by knowing that conditions might present something like this. But quite a show.
So, Wilson, as this fire continues to burn, what have you seen within the last couple of hours as far as the smoke plumes? You were telling us that you felt like it's starting to dissipate, that maybe they are finally getting a handle on this fire.
Yeah, we haven't seen a big, push of brown, well-fueled smoke in quite a while. I don't know, maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes or something. It feels like it's laying down a little bit.
All right, well, that certainly would be good news for all the people that are watching us that are perhaps evacuated right now. I want to circle back to those. Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, and Altura Place. Wilson, when we last spoke, you were on Crystal Ridge Court. Is that where you are right now?
Yeah, still here. And as we've been showing you, a bunch of firefighters up here on every single property that lines up against this open space.
Okay, and it seems like everybody had evacuated.
Yeah, I think the home where we're standing might have been the last couple of people who stayed on the street. And when that fire kind of popped up a little bit as we were talking, maybe an hour or so ago, they decided to take off. So this place has been pretty empty, really, and since I got here. It has been pretty sparse.
Yeah, and Wilson, I know you've been a reporter, you've been a producer here for many, many years. Everybody is aware of what happened in the Oakland Hills in 1991. Do you feel like that sort of gave it a sense of urgency? Because you see these evacuation orders sometimes and people don't heed them. Did you feel like there's a certain sense in that area of we got to go?
Yeah, judging by the amount of people who had left, absolutely. And on my way up the hill, there were certainly people on their way out. I think everybody's seen enough fire since 2017 to know You know, folks up here probably familiar with their evacuation zone and procedure, et cetera, which is something maybe people wouldn't have said, you know, the first part of 2017.
And we've been
of course,
talking about how
you say
dry
Oakland
it
Hills,
is.
that just...
Go ahead.
Yeah, you say Oakland Hills. Obviously, everyone is going to think back to that you know, the real catastrophe, and it's scary. You know, it just as far as recent memory, I'm thinking of a similar fire on 580, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago. Really, not far from this one, with a very similar situation, where you get a fire kind of, you know, in that sort of open space between the you know, freeway down there and the homes that are built up in the hills here.
Right,
You know,
right.
So it's
that
just
terrain
one of those
is
things we
such
see
a
happen.
challenge. And that is why where these air resources really come in handy. And Ryan, I know you were talking about some of the models and some of the upgrades that CAL FIRE has done recently to its firefighting fleet because of the fact that California wildfires have gotten so much more powerful and really powerful, unpredictable, and fast moving.
Yeah, and you had mentioned about urgency, and I think in the last couple of years, because we had some of those record-breaking major wildfires to the state of California, you've seen CAL FIRE and different fire agencies. They don't wait. They don't wait to assess the danger. They just go in and attack the flames. And I think this is one of those cases. They see a small 8-acre fire burning, now up to 10 acres, burning in the Oakland Hills. And they wasted no time to go ahead and start attacking this, because when you talk back about 1991 and the Oakland firestorm, that memory is still, you know, lack of a better term, still burned in the memory of so many people around here in the Bay Area. And you were mentioning something. You were mentioning something. It was very eerie to think that the Oakland firestorm happened on October 19th on a Saturday 33 years ago. Yeah. And that is October 19th is tomorrow.
Yeah.
We're in that middle of that October in the fall when the fire danger is supposed to start to subside. But, you know, we're still here in the middle of fall and the fire danger is still very high.
And I want to just direct our viewers to their screen if you're not looking. This is a pretty cool shot of one of these helicopters taking water from a nearby body of water. I guess that's the reservoir, and that they're going to drop that water on the fire. This is just one of the tools that firefighters are using. But that flame retardant that Wilson was mentioning earlier, that is really the key to protecting some of these homes and stopping the fire. But that was a cool live picture we just got from our chopper. Of course, we've all been looking at these live pictures, as you have for the past almost 3 hours now, as we have been covering this fire that broke out in the Oakland Hills. It started in the area of Mountain Boulevard and Maynard. That is where at least 5 homes have burned. We did just get some new information, actually 2 pieces I want to give you, that the acreage right now, 10 acres have burned officially. They're not going to be able to get the actual number until they're able to actually get that full line around the fire. But we're hearing 10 acres have burned. Also, new information from PG&E. They have had to cut power preemptively to about 1,200 homes and businesses in the Oakland Hills to make sure that it was safe for firefighters to work in that area. So that is the very latest here. And of course, the weather, as we've been talking about, humongous factor, and has actually been slightly merciful as the fire has unfolded. And Darren Peck has been watching those conditions very closely. Darren, what are we dealing with?
And one of the things that we take into consideration when we hear red flag warning, which we've been talking about consistently since the National Weather Service started messaging the risk today and tomorrow from a fire weather standpoint, one of the factors that plays into that, in addition to the wind, which obviously comes top of mind for all of us, is the reduced humidity. And that part of this concern is still in play. The humidity is quite low out there today, but the wind is not playing the kind of worst case scenario role. And once the fire gets started, obviously the number one factor in how big is this going to get? How much is this going to spread? How much risk is there? Overwhelmingly, the wind plays the leading role in that part of the story once it gets going. Vegetation's certainly dry enough out there that a fire start was not all that difficult to come about, and which is what we're seeing in this case. So there is that concern, it's dry vegetation, but the wind is huge. And just to drive that point home if we can. The picture on the screen right now off to my left shows you the behavior of the smoke plume and how that smoke plume is generally moving uphill. We've got a time lapse that we started from our camera on the Salesforce Tower right around 1:45 when this started. And if we can just go to this full for a moment, because this is probably one of the most telling images of the day in terms of the way this fire is behaving. So we're back to 140. I'm going to hit play. Watch the way the flames move on this, and you can see it moving uphill. You see the direction this is moving? So if this was being overwhelmingly influenced by this worst case scenario of downsloping offshore winds, that fire would have been going the other way. It would have been getting pushed downhill because that's the way the wind would be pushing it if those offshore worst case scenario winds were driving this. So that time lapse shows us they are not. That's the best news of this day. The fire is going to be driven primarily by topography in a situation like this, and fires naturally want to go uphill. When we had that Oakland firestorm back in 1991, which Ryan and Ann have been talking about, the anniversary of that being tomorrow, it's eerie, but on the other hand, it's totally predictable. This is the time of year when this is going to happen. I think it's way more instructive that the dates line up almost perfectly between that very different firestorm and today's event. Because this is the time of year when the vegetation has dried out in the East Bay Hills and when we get our Diablo winds. Let's take a moment on that. Can we go back to the virtual map now? I'll show you the reason why we would call these Diablo winds, and that's a term that's picked up over the course of the last few years as a way for us all to message why these are different. We can see where the locator is on here. By the way, that fire is now at 10 acres, as Ann has just told us, not at 8, so it has updated since then. But I'm going to remove that locator for a moment, and I want you to look behind it. There's Mount Diablo on the east side of the bay. So in coming up with ways that we could all get public awareness around the notion of offshore winds, the term Diablo wind has now come into use by a lot of people in the fire community, in the National Weather Service, and in the public messengers where we're trying to get the news out. Look what's going on over here today. This is the current visualization of the way the wind's moving through the bay. Remember our locator from Mount Diablo, it's probably the most notable feature out here. The wind is coming from that direction and downsloping towards the bay from our perspective. So for those of us who live in the bay, the primary locator for an offshore wind event would be which way's that wind moving over Mount Diablo. And that's why if you hear the term, and you will likely hear this term much more in the coming years as awareness level raises about our vulnerability to fires like this time of year, you're going to hear that term Diablo winds. And Southern California's done that for years. They call theirs Santa Ana winds. And that's a term that really did take off with the general public. You say Santa Ana winds, everybody in LA understands what you're talking about. Here at home, we've got a different topography. We deserve local nomenclature and naming for this type of thing. So we call them Diablo winds. Again, on the forecast for this, and Ann, this was your question to me last time, so I'll touch on this one more time. What can we expect these winds to do going forward? Remember, this red flag warning stays in effect until we get to tomorrow night. So for right now, things are behaving. I'm going to remove the right now winds. And instead, I've set this to show us what happens over the next 12 hours. Come in for a slightly closer view here, and let's watch the direction the wind's going to move. It's a subtle change. You're going to see a little bit of a battle tonight with onshore winds. Notice how we're kind of right at the convergence line there. Now that can create a little bit of back and forth, which is never good on a wildfire, but it's way better than the alternative, which would have been those easterly winds sweeping down the face of the East Bay Hills, and instead of seeing that fire work its way up canyon, it would then get pushed downhill towards all the homes. And at this point, this does not appear to be that kind of event. In 1991 it was, and in 1991 it was a windstorm unmistakable. And thankfully today we're not looking at that.
Darren,
and back to you.
Yeah, Darren, if you could stick around, I just have one more question for you. And I know this is always difficult to say, but the accuracy of what you're looking at when it comes to these winds, because we know they can be erratic. When you look 12 hours ahead, because we are going to have hot spots that are going to exist in this fire zone.
Sure.
How confident do you feel about these winds not getting crazy?
I can answer that with a little more detail if we have a second for that. And we'd have to leave behind that picture of the smoke, and I want to come back to our monitor again. So we're going to go a little old school here, because that was another tool that I wanted to reference to make sure we could communicate what we're seeing here on the virtual map is an accurate depiction. And we're going to go back to something called the High Resolution Rapid Refresh Model, which is probably the most trusted tool in a situation like this if you want to get really refined. Get a wide enough picture on that so we can see the timestamp. There's a upper right-hand corner. We got to go way up there. That's right now. Earlier, Ann, when I visited with you, I said tomorrow morning would be the next time frame where we would probably see a subtle uptick in winds coming from the northeast over the East Bay Hills. And here's why I said that. We're going to let that play to 11 a.m. That's actually right around 10 a.m. now, but give or take an hour or so. It's late morning tomorrow where we would see the winds probably pick up in intensity in the direction we really don't want to see. But again, that's 10, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. That's almost 24 hours from the time this fire would have started. And just based on what we're seeing from all of our cameras and all of our eyes on the sky on this fire, we can be hopeful that by the time we get there, we won't be as vulnerable to this fire getting beyond containment lines. But again, we've got to hear more from the firefighters on the front lines for that. That's just my take, my bird's eye view take on where we stand.
We appreciate it. We appreciate it very much, Darren Peck. In the meantime, we have heard from another person who's near the evacuation zone, and I just want to run that down for you. That evacuation zone, Crystal Ridge Court, Campus Drive, Rifle Lane, and Altura Place in the Oakland Hills under mandatory evacuations. You can go to Merritt College if you are. Let's hear from that neighbor.
Well, just checking on people. There's some folks, I just met the gentleman and his house burnt down there. They have somewhere to go, but he and his mom don't have a place to go tonight. So that's really heartbreaking. We did hear about the fire, so we came up here to make sure our families were okay, and we had to walk up through this. Don't know how it started, but I want to thank Alameda County. I want to definitely thank Oakland Fire Department and CAL FIRE. They seem to be getting to what needs to happen and get this fire under control. It was very scary. I just witnessed a lot of people just breaking down, but I think our firefighters and our other municipal aid came in to help to get this fire under control.
All right, we just got a really good update for people living in the Oakland Hills who've been affected by this fire. Forward progress has stopped. Forward progress of this fire has stopped. The danger is not over. There's still the chance of hot spots reigniting and bringing embers if the wind were to pick back up. It's super good news that forward progress has stopped, and the total right now is 13 acres that have been burned in this fire. Ryan.
It's interesting that you're having that conversation with Darren, like, are we out of the woods just yet? While they have control of this fire right now, we have to remember back in 1991, the tunnel fire, or the Oakland firestorm, actually started as a small brush fire that they put out, or they had thought they had put out on Saturday. It wasn't until the next day that it did blow up. And as you can see, as Darren was mentioning, those winds will continue through the weekend. So while we're out of the woods, probably for now for this fire, we still have to keep an eye on the Oakland Hills and other areas because we're definitely not out of the fire danger, at least for this season.
We have been watching live pictures of this fire for the past 3 hours here on CBS News Bay Area. We're going to continue our coverage throughout the night. Our next live newscast coming up at 4:30. Thanks for joining us. Again, we've got crews all around the Oakland Hills to deal with the aftermath of this, as it looks like firefighters have a decent wrap.